Right, okay. Good evening, everybody. It's just gone 6 o'clock, so we'll make a start. And welcome along to Rushcliffe Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. In addition, other people may film, record, post on social media or blog from this meeting, and the use of any such images or sound recordings is not under the Council's control. May I remind councillors to please switch your microphones off when you are not speaking and switch them on when you are speaking. So thank you. For the benefit of our visitors, I'm Councillor Richard Butler, the Chairman of the Planning Committee, and Councillor Rex Walker is Vice Chairman. And also on the table tonight we have Mr Cullen, who is a Planning Manager, Mr Langton, Senior Planning Officer, Mr Pettit, Landscape Officer, and Mrs Walker, the Borough Solicitor. So we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, and that's apologies for absence. Please.
We've apologies from Councillor Edivine and Councillor Parek is substituting.
Thank you. Councillor Parek did send a message a little while ago saying she's delayed in traffic. She's on her way, so she'll arrive when she arrives. If she arrives sort of when we started the first item that we'll be deciding tonight, then I think she'll realise she won't be able to, if she's not here for the whole debate, she won't be able to vote on it. And so we'll then move on to declarations of interest. And Councillor Walker, I think you wish to make a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I declare an interest in the second substantive planning matter for sand and gravel at Barton and Fabis. I shall be standing down from the committee for that item. And addressing the committee as a role as a ward member.
Okay, thank you. I got that. And any other declarations? No. So we'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting, which was quite astonishing. It was held way back in February, on the 13th of February. That doesn't mean to say that the planning department and the planning committee has not been busy. The planning department has been exceptionally busy, but it's just there hasn't been the time. The way the timing works hasn't been suitable for applications to come to committee. So, but we are here now. So, for those of us who were here on the 13th of February, are we all happy that the minutes are correct? So, I'll sign those. What's the date? 15th, wasn't it? Right, so this takes us on to the main reason we're here this evening, and that's to discuss and debate and decide on planning applications. We have two planning applications tonight. The first one is the new house, Station Road, Upper Broughton, and this is a tree protection order. And Mr. Pettit, I think you're talking us through this. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we're here to consider an objection to the Upper Broughton number 1 Tree Preservation Order 2025. I think I'll try and set the scene and then I'll show you some photos of the trees. The TPO protects 3 silver birch trees in the front garden of the new house, a 1970s property with modernisation on the north side of Station Road in Upper Broughton Conservation Area. The village has a strong rural character and the trees make a positive contribution to this. The order was made following a conservation area tree notification to fell 3 trees on the grounds they were causing damage to the drive, concerns over their age, continuing safety and interference with phone lines. The notice stated the owner's intention to plant 3 replacement trees. When considering the notice, officers noted their prominent roadside location, and we also aware of the offer to plant 3 replacement trees, but due to the process, we had no way of enforcing this. Hence the fact we made a TPO on the 5th of February 2025. It takes provisionally for 6 months, and we have a duty to consider all objections and representations made. The council has allowed the trees to be approximately sort of every 4 years to be pruned since 2008. So you can see the protected trees are the black circles on the plan above. This is the aerial shot. So again, you can see it's quite a rural location. The trees in question are the ones on the right of the photo, to the located behind the outbuilding. This is looking from the east, and again you can sort of see the rural characteristics of the village. Not many properties are fronting the road, but there are quite a number of trees. This is again looking from the east at the trees. This is from the opposite direction. The trees are to the left of the car. And again, you see that sense that it's a rural location with a lot of trees lining the road. We'll be talking about phone lines, and you can see there's a couple coming towards the trees in this photo. And again, you can see, I don't think you can see it, but there is a phone line where Andrew's kindly pointing out, sort of running to the left of that tree. That, I think you can see, you should be able to see it in that one better. You can see the phone line. You can see it's just outside of the current canopy of the tree. We'll also be discussing the impact on the driveway. That's a view looking towards the property. And then this view shows the driveway. I think you can see there is a sense that the roots are under the driveway, but I would consider the actual lifting of the driveway to be quite minor at the current time. So the owners of the trees have objected for the following reasons. The main reason is because of the roots beginning to lift the driveway. Despite a substantial subbase, the damage has been increasing over the past 2 years. In addition, there's a phone line running to the side of the trees, and they're concerned that the phone line could be fouled by the branches. The TPO will prevent work to the trees, which are large, at least 50 years old, and have long outgrown the site and need to be removed. The council made the tree preservation order after the 6-week conservation area window had closed. The owners believe the council has let them down as work had been delayed and a tree surgeon had been booked in to do the work. The owners do like the trees. They are aware of that they enhance the garden in the local area. They're also honorary members of the Nottinghamshire Fungi Group, and they appreciate the beneficial role of birch and fungi together. After the TPO was made, a site meeting was held, and I discussed or suggested that a phased approach to removal and replanting would be looked on favourably. The owners were against that. They would much rather remove all 3 trees at the same time and plant replacements in one go. It is possible to ascertain some roots are below the driveway, but as I said previously, I think that the driveway is in good condition. There's no significant lifting at the current time, and hence a suggestion about phased removal, in that it could allow the removal of the tree closest to the driveway in the first instance. Whilst the TPO protects trees, it does not prevent applications being made to prune or fell them. We have allowed trees to be pruned in the past, and I would consider that any future application would be considered on its own merits, but I would politely suggest that it would be appropriate to allow trees to be pruned to keep them clear of phone lines. We do not believe all 3 trees are outgrowing the location to the point that all 3 need removal at the same time. They may well be 50 years old, but I would hope this would give them a remaining useful lifespan of around 20 to 30 years. The TPO was made after the 6 weeks notice period, so there was a period in time when the tree owners were within their rights to remove them. But the council can make a TPO at any point in time. I apologise for any inconvenience caused, but the council was within its rights to protect the trees. When considering conservation area tree notifications, the council has 2 choices. We can allow the work to take place without any control, or we have to make a tree preservation order to use conditions. Given the prominent roadside location of the trees and the fact that all 3 were shown to be removed, we felt that making a tree preservation order was the best way to seek their retention and give us that authority to ensure that replacement planting takes place. The committee has 3 options tonight. If you feel the protection of the trees is not appropriate, you could decide to revoke the order, which would take us sort of 2 to 3 weeks, or we could allow it to lapse at the end of the 6-month period in August. This would allow the owners free rein to fell and replace as they wish. The alternative is to confirm the TPO, which would make it permanent. It would then require the owners to submit applications to prune or fell the trees and give the council the authority to ensure replacement planting. As discussed previously, we do feel that a phased approach would be appropriate, and we don't consider that allowing 1 or 2 trees to be removed and replacements planted alongside an existing mature tree would look out of place. Therefore, it's recommended that the Upper Broughton number 1 tree preservation order 2025 is confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pettit. We have a guest speaker on this item, who is the resident, Mrs. Wilson. So if you'd like to come to the seat there, and I don't know whether you've been told, but you have up to 5 minutes to talk to us. And if you're still talking at 4.5 minutes, then we'll tell you there's 30 seconds left and ask you to wind up. So as soon as you're ready, nice and relaxed, and you just press the right hand button and the red light will come on.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak at your meeting. I will be referring to the undated document headed 250025T order submitted by your tree officer. My husband and I felt it was important to address some of the issues which your officer has raised. I'd like to give you some background to the time frame concerning our conservation area tree notice, which was included in our letter of objection, but omitted from the submission before you. Our notice was sent by first-class post to the council on the 7th of September 2024. We received no acknowledgement. On the 31st of January 2025, I telephoned trying to find out if the application had been approved. I was told Mr. Pettit would ring me back. When I hadn't heard anything by Tuesday evening, 4th of February, I found Mr. Pettit's email address from previous correspondence and sent a copy of the application, including photographs as before, and inquired if we could go ahead as we wanted to schedule the work with our tree surgeon. We learned on the 6th of February that Mr. Pettit had placed a tree preservation order on the trees on the 5th of February before even speaking to us about the application. This was 5 months after receiving it. Referring to paragraph 1 of his paper, he gives the impression that the trees are on the roadside and by inference are fully visible. In fact, the trees are behind an 8-foot-high dense hawthorn hedge, which is 3 to 4 feet wide, and contribution to the street scene, in our opinion, is limited. In paragraph 6, the list of our 4 previous applications to prune the trees since 2008 demonstrates that we have taken care of these trees and followed the regulations in good faith. Referring to paragraph 9, our application to fell the trees was because of the signs of damage to the tarmac surface of our drive, evident from the surface beginning to be uneven and crack. With recent significant tree growth, we felt the rate of damage would accelerate such that we decided we needed to take some action now. With reference to paragraph 11, we do not consider that the growth of the trees as regards the canopy and root system could be contained by continual pruning over a period of further 20 years as stated. More heavy pruning would be required, and silver birches do not respond well to such. We have lived at this house since 1988 and were informed by the previous owners that they had planted the 3 varieties of silver birch. We would like to do the same. The tree officer in paragraph 12 states, the residents of the borough often propose replacement planting in such notices, and the council has no way of knowing or ensuring that this will take place. We have made the application in good faith, and we feel the tree officer implies he has doubts about our integrity. Expressing doubts as to the integrity of applicants are on the list of matters which are not considered to be material planning considerations on your guidance for speaking to this committee. In paragraph 13, he states a TPO would be a suitable way of ensuring replacement planting took place. We would have been able to make further assurances and even a written undertaking of our plans to replant had he contacted us, and the TPO would then not have been required. In paragraph 9, 13 and 14, the tree officer puts forward the view that a phased approach could be achieved. By this, he implies that each one of the trees could be removed and replaced over a period of time. Our contention is that new trees will have a better chance of thriving on a cleared and well-prepared site where they are not vying with mature trees for light and nutrients. Also, due to the restricted size of the area, new plantings could be damaged by any further work required to the more mature neighbouring trees. We feel your office's favoured approach to dealing with these trees in a phased manner is not practical, and a much better outcomes could be achieved by allowing the felling and replanting of all 3 trees to conserve the harmony of the site. Do I press something?
Thank you. Well, it's well within your 5 minutes, so thank you for that. And that's all very clear. So we don't have any other speakers on this item. So what we'll do now is we'll just pick up on the points that Mrs. Wilson has raised, in particular the comments about the time frame between applying, sending information in, and the apparent delay in getting responses, and also the comments about wishing to replace the 3 old existing trees with replacement trees all in one go. Yeah, so Mr. Petter, can you come back and help us on those points, please, and then we'll go into a general discussion.
Yeah, so we did receive your notice on the 7th of September, and I appreciate it did take a long time, and I did sort of apologise for that. Unfortunately, the way we work, we have to get decisions signed off, and the decision, the officers wouldn't allow the removal of the trees without some reassurance that replacement planting would take place. That was just before Christmas. Christmas got in the way, and then we have to sort of make the TPO, we have to get it made and served, and that, unfortunately, due to some changes in staff, took longer than we would have liked. So unfortunately, I think it was a series of unfortunate events that meant that this TPO took a lot longer to make than we would normally expect by a considerable margin. And obviously, when you tried to contact me in February, the decision to make the TPO had been made sometime beforehand, so the process was in motion at that point. I take your point about removal and replanting. If you do retain some trees and plant some, they may need a little bit more maintenance in that first 2 years, particularly at this time of year when the sun is beating down, and trees do require watering in the first or second year. Although I do feel that when trees are removed, tree surgeons are competent people, most are professionals, and actually, removal of a tree should be done in a considered and careful manner so it doesn't cause any damage. So I think it would be entirely possible for the trees to be felled alongside any replacement planting in the same way that it's alongside, the boundary hedges and the adjacent property. So, we wouldn't want to see damage occur to any structure, including replacement trees.
Okay, thank you. So we can open it up now for any questions and comments from committee members. We've heard from Mr. Pettit, who is proposing the preservation order, and we've heard from Mrs. Wilson, who is objecting, and we've heard the reasons why. So anyone wish to, Councillor Thomas?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I don't think we're here to decide on the fate of the trees. I think we're here to decide whether or not the TPO should be confirmed. And then if it is confirmed, there can still be a conversation, obviously, between the residents and the staff at Rushcliffe. So, confirming the TPO doesn't actually determine the fate of the trees. I think the TPO should be confirmed, and I move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. So that's clear, and you're moving the recommendation. Councillor Mason?
Thank you. I too would like to second the recommendation. It needn't be as has been said, the end of the story, if you like, about these trees. But it does give some space to continue to look at it. And I do know that considerable damage can with a telephone wire, because that happened to my big tree in the front of my garden. It is huge, and it had rubbed against, and they came, and they did it, and the telephone people came and put a new line in. Unfortunately, it is also it's happening again, so I'll probably be giving you a ring, but that is a problem, but you do what you can, to protect these trees. I do think actually they are, because you can see them from the road, and although they're behind that building, you can see them, and you could say they are part of the street scene. So I think it would be good to do that with the TPO and keep it for a while and see how it goes. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Ellis.
I found Mrs. Wilson's presentation quite persuasive, and I think the most effective way to deal with this is to revoke the TPO and let the residents get on with it. So I'll be voting against the motion.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions about tree pruning. Does tree pruning in any way reduce the growth of the roots, for example, underneath a driveway? And secondly, Mrs. Owen mentioned that silver birch don't respond well to pruning. Is that a common problem with silver birches? I noticed that in the site history, there's been 4 occasions where there has been pruning, and they look pretty healthy to me.
So I don't think pruning a tree will reduce the root growth of a tree. I think it will, over a number of years, reduce the water uptake, which can help in subsidence issues, but I don't think it would affect the roots in relation to the driveway. I think, but you are correct, birch don't tend to respond well to pruning, and it has to be done very carefully. They do tolerate a light prune, but if you prune them too heavily, they've got very weak defences against decay, and rot will set in. But I think the owners have done, a pretty good job of maintaining these trees in the past, and like you say, they're looking good, and they still enhance the public realm.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Walker, you got a couple of questions.
If I may, Chair, thank you. Yeah, I think it would help me just to get a little bit more clarity on what the test is in the first place about making the order, which we're being asked to revoke or confirm. And then the second question is, you mentioned 3 options. I think I missed something. I only wrote 2 down. So I got 1, revoke, I think is, and let it lapse. And was that the same? Is that in the same option? I got 2, confirm the order as permanent, and I wasn't quite sure what the third one was. So if you could help me out with those 2 things, that would get me closer to a decision, I think. Thank you.
And coincidentally, I also had the same query, but just clarification on those points, please.
Okay, so the test in its most basic form, the legislation states trees should enhance the public amenity of an area. So amenity is taken to mean, something pleasant, something nice that enhances the area. And the second test is, are trees, or the government suggests trees at very least should be visible from a public vantage point. So we tend not to take into account views from private gardens. So these trees, they're visible, they're prominent, they're roadside, so they do enhance the public realm. So I think they meet that test. We can give other weight to wildlife value, but the principal thing is, do they enhance the public realm primarily through their visibility? Sorry for the confusion about revoking and lapsing. Revoke would be where we simply record on the tree preservation order a decision to cancel it. That would have to go to our legal team, so it'd take a week or 2 to get it done and served. But that would allow the trees to be felled within, let's say, a very short period of time. Or we could drag our heels and allow it to lapse at the end of August, which is perhaps a less ideal solution if you feel that the tree preservation order is inappropriate. Obviously, confirming it allows that continued protection of the trees.
Does that help? Is that still clear, or are you still a little bit unsure about the options there? Because I think I am.
I'm clear on the options.
Okay.
I think I'm still working through the test, because are we saying that any tree visible from the public realm which looks nice could have an order?
Yeah, we try and, obviously the purpose of a conservation area tree notification is to be forewarned about the removal of trees. So we know there is a risk to the trees. It's very difficult to suggest that every tree that is visible to the public is at risk. And so the difficulty with this job is trying to balance that decision-making process about when is it appropriate to step in and protect a tree. So if we know we've had a conservation area tree notification to remove trees, we know they're coming out. If we've got a planning application, we can be reasonably sure there might be changes to the use of land. Same with a property sale, we know there might be a change. So we obviously can't protect every tree, but we use conservation area tree notifications as a way of catalysing action.
Anyone else wish to come in on this one? No, I sense not. So we've had the presentation, the discussion and questions. We've had the discussion about some colleagues being in favour of the recommendation. It's becoming apparent to me that there are some colleagues who may be against the recommendation, and that's fine. We'll take a vote on that in a moment. So I think yes, we may as well do that now, haven't we? If no one else wishes to say anything, let's go to the vote. So we do have the recommendations before us has been moved by Councillor Thomas and seconded by Councillor Mason. I think we better have a show of hands. Those in favour of that, please show. Oh, sorry.
Can we just ascertain who can vote and who cannot?
Oh,
Councillor Mallender arrived before the debate started.
yes. So Councillor Mallender, you're not. Are you abstaining from this? That's fine. And Councillor Perek, don't worry. We understand. We understand the traffic situation, so don't worry. It's fine. So you won't be. So neither Councillors Mallender or Perek will be voting on this. So the absence of Councillor Perek and Mallender, we've got the recommendation has been moved and seconded as per the report. A show of hands in favour of that recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that? Yeah, and those against? I think that's 3. So just to confirm, that's 5 in favour of the recommendation and 3 against. So the recommendation has been moved and approved, but I hope that dialogue will continue between yourself, Mr. Pettit, and the applicants, because it's plainly a very sensitive matter for all concerned. So thank you for coming along this evening, but the decision has been taken. So you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I suspect you'll want to go home, so feel free to go if you wish. So we'll just do a little bit of musical chairs now, chair movement, and then we'll go on to the next application. Right, thank you for your patience. We now have a full complement of members, although we are 1 down, but we have everyone is here for the start of this debate. And this is the land off Green Street, Mill Hill, and land at Barton in Fabus off Chestnut Lane. And this is the proposal is extraction, processing, sale and distribution of sand and gravel and subsequent restoration together with the necessary highway and access improvements. As I'm sure you all appreciate, we are discussing this tonight as a consultee to an application, this application which is in place, which will ultimately be decided by Nottinghamshire County Council. I'm sure you all realise that, but I just have to say that to make that clear. And so, Mr. Langton, you're going to talk us through this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Some late representations to notify you all of this evening for this item. So comments from the Council's Senior Ecology and Sustainability Officer in respect of the Badger report have been received. This report was previously confidential, but we have now had sight of the unredacted version. No concerns are raised in respect of this, but recommendations are made that mitigation measures set out in the report need to be adhered to, and that these are added to the other conditions that form part of the Council's recommendation to the county.
Can I just interrupt? Can I just check that all colleagues have received and seen the late representations to this? So we've all got them, haven't we? Yeah. Okay, just confirming that.
Thank you. So it's also noted that the application was submitted as a cross-boundary application to the County Council and to the City Council. This is just a point of order. It's not referenced in our report, but the relevance of our recommendation is to provide comments to the County Council as per our requirement as the borough within which the works are taking place. But as I said, a small amount of the site is within the City Council, so the application's been submitted to them for consideration as well. It's noted that a Regulation 25 letter, a further Regulation 25 letter, has been sent out by the County Council, dated the 16th of April. This is a letter that's gone out to the applicant requesting further information on a number of matters that are set out in your late items. I won't go over all of these again. So we will expect further information in due course, but notwithstanding that, we are recommending to put a response together for the County Council at this time. Comment from a member of the public has been received, neither objecting to nor supporting the application, that the restoration of the site should not preclude part of the site being used for boating and marina facilities, as Rushcliffe is very short on such facilities. We've also received a further objection from Councillor Andy Brown, citing inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, that Nottinghamshire already has an adequate supply of sand and gravel, as demonstrated in the local minerals plan. Damage to the local ecology, which has already been impacted by fare and pastures development, impact on the Attenborough Nature Reserve, destruction of habitats for more species, and highlighting these supports the objections made by the public and other consultees. As a further point, you'll note on page 37, paragraph G, there's a bit of a typo formatting error that's occurred there. This paragraph should read, it should be demonstrated that specific action to encourage the necklace ground beetle, Carabus manili, endangered species, will be undertaken. Thank you, Councillor Butler. Sorry. So in summary, this application, as Councillor Butler says, relates to a county matters application. We as the borough are a consultee on the application, so we provide a response to the County Council, who will be the final determinees of the application. The application is for the extraction, processing, sale and distribution of sand and gravel, together with subsequent restoration of the site and necessary highways and access improvements. The proposed quarry would facilitate the extraction of up to just over 2.5 million tonnes of saleable aggregates. 5 phases of operation works across the site will be carried out. I'll run you through those in a moment, and this will be followed by restoration works. The operational lifetime of the development is said to be approximately 12.5 years. With regard to the application site, it relates to an area of land approximately 85 hectares in size to the northeast of Barton and Fabus. The site is to the east and immediately adjacent to the River Trent, and the land is largely flat to the western part of the site, with the site rising to the east, where it is approximately 50 metres above the valley floor. Burrows Farm is located to the north side of the site, and Brands Hill Wood is adjacent to the south of the site. just to get your bearings, and because things have moved on since this aerial photo was taken, for your reference, this is the Fair and Pastures development on the southeast side of the A453, where obviously works are going on. The A453 here running north to south along there. This is Burrows Farm up here, which I was referring to, and Brands Hill Wood running down the southern parts of the site. The site largely consists of agricultural and unmanaged land. There is existing access to the east of the site off Green Street, which is up here, and bridleways 1 and 3 run through the site, and footpath 2 also run through the site. These run through the sort of the western part of the site on the flatter parts and adjacent to Brands Hill Woods. So with respect to the phasing, the initial works would establish the temporary works in the processing area. So that's located to the east of the site, close to the access. So this would include bringing plant equipment onto the site, along with the weighbridge, office, wheel wash, processing water lagoons, and would involve stripping soils and overburden back from this part of the site. They would be stored on the southern part of the processing area to be reused in the restoration of this part of the site. The access to the site will be improved to allow for two-way movements of HGV traffics. The new permissive path will be established, which would run from the top end of the site, where there would also be a new footpath, cycle path and bridleway to connect to Fox Covert Lane from the access of the site. The new permissive path will look to link that up, like I say, through the Brands Hill grasslands down to the existing bridleways that run through the central part of the site. There will also be a new covered that part. It will also, the extension of the access to open up to the extraction area will also be established at this point to allow the field hopper and conveyor to be set up. The conveyor will run from the extraction area up the north side of the site to the processing plant area. The first phase of the development would, the first operational phase of the development, I should say, would be extending southwards from the conveyor site, with restoration following in a progressive way behind this. Phase 1 would also see the establishment of a new permissive path on the northwestern part of the site, which would then link up with existing footpaths coming out of Barton and Fabus. Phase 2 would see extraction works continue southwards from phase 1, again with restoration works following on behind. Currently, footpath 2 runs across this phase of the development, so this will be required to be diverted along the southeastern side of this phase to then turn north at the southern part of the site to connect back up with the existing footpaths and bridleways. Phase 3 of the operational part would extend northwards from phase 2, again with restoration works following progressively. The permissive route that was opened up during phase 1 due to the location of phase 3 and 4 would have to be closed temporarily due to safety reasons to ensure that access was not through the extraction area. And phase 4 continues up the northern part of the site, would be the penultimate operational phase of development. And this, as the restoration in phase 2 starts to be completed, would see the opening up of footpath 2 back on its previous course. Phase 5, so this would be the final operational phase of development, which would see the restoration of the remaining excavation areas, so the restoration of these parts where phase 3 and 4 were operating, would also lead to the removal of the plant equipment from the processing area and the other temporary works. Stockpiles would be remaining on site for a short period whilst final sales are completed. And then the final restoration of the site would result in the social and biodiversity net gain. As I say, those soils and overburden that were previously stripped from the plant area would be reinstated. And you can see the permissive paths remaining in place, and a more of a wetland field created to the former extraction areas. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview of the site. So just run through some photos to give you a bit more context. So this is the existing access of Green Street. This is the area that would be improved to allow for two-way HGV movements. It's a photo taken from the existing access looking northwest across what would be the processing plant area. You can see the Mill Hill Spinney woodland on the right side of the photo, and then in the distance you can see the Brands Hill wood as well over there. Just to give you your bearings, you'll start to see how the topography of the site starts to slope down to the northwest. This photo is taken from adjacent to the Mill Hill Spinney on the northern part of the processing area, looking back up and across the processing plant site. Again, giving you an idea of the topography of the area. Photo taken on the northern part of the processing site, looking over the extraction areas. You can see the Burrows farm and associated buildings on the right hand side of the photograph. And then again from the same location, looking out over the extraction area, now looking in a more of a southwesterly direction, over to where you can see the River Trent in the distance. So the application site is within the Greenbelt, and as such, consideration must be given as to whether or not the proposal is an exception to inappropriate development. Other matters for consideration from ourselves as a consultee relate to the character and appearance of the area, amenity impacts, ecological impacts, land contamination. You will see throughout the reports and the statements matters raised in respect of flooding, transport, flight safety. These are all matters to be considered directly by the county council themselves. With regards to the Greenbelt, in accordance with paragraph 154H1 of the MPPF, mineral extraction can be considered as an exception to inappropriate development, provided it preserves the openness of the Greenbelt and does not conflict with the purposes of including land within it. Now, the presence of the plant and the equipment could result in development not preserving the openness of the Greenbelt, but it is noted that the plant and equipment proposed would be temporary, and therefore, whilst the mineral extraction is identified as a potential exception to inappropriate development, it would be for the county council as the local minerals authority to consider whether or not to consider the extent and nature of the ancillary equipment proposed, and whether or not these are proportionate and reasonably necessary to an extent that they fall within the exception to inappropriate development as set out in the National Planning Policy Framework. Regards to impact on the character of the area, a landscape visual impact assessment has been submitted and reviewed by the council's senior design and landscape officer. The processing area and conveyor route would occupy the more elevated part of the site on the eastern side, although as previously noted, these would be temporary aspects of the development. Post-restoration, there would be a clear change from a meadow character of the area to one which contains more wetlands, although given the location of the site within the Trent floodplain, this is not considered to result in significant unacceptable impacts. Proposals are put forward to reinstate ridge and furrow in the grasslands field where the conveyor and haul road would be, and there would also be enhanced planting around the site which would be supported. Restoration works would follow operational phases of the development, and it's considered that detailed restoration and landscaping plans should be conditioned. Conditions are also recommended to secure replacement tree planting, tree protection, and requiring that in the event that excavation was to cease prematurely, that the restoration of the site would be completed in full. These are all put forward in the recommendation at the end of the report. No objections are raised by the council's conservation officer. With regards to neighbouring amenity and such impacts, the county council should give consideration to the impact of the proposal on the residents of Burrows Farm to the north of the site. Given the separation distance to other residential properties, no concerns are raised in respect of overshadowing or overbearing impacts as a result of the works for other residents. A number of recommendations are made by the Council's Environmental Health Officer in respect of the results of the noise assessment, and suggested conditions to mitigate against and control noise impacts are recommended. It's also recommended to obtain further information in respect of background noise levels, noise monitoring scheme and tonal noise levels. Based on the details provided in the air quality assessment, no concerns are raised in respect of transport emissions, and no further mitigation is therefore considered to be necessary. The dust management plan has been provided with mitigation measures that appear appropriate. However, it is recommended that more detailed dust management plans are provided on a phase-by-phase basis. The Council's Environmental Health Officer also recommends that that the County Council seek the opinion of the UK Health Security Agency and Public Health in respect of potential silicon dust impacts. The lighting assessment provided raises no concerns in principle to lighting impacts of the development, subject to conditions restricting the lighting provision to that as set out in the lighting assessment provided by the applicant. Regards to ecological surveys have been carried out according to good practice, and as per the consideration by the Council's Senior Ecology and Sustainability Officer, although he does note that they are out of date as of March 2025 this year. So the County Council will therefore need to consider if new surveys are required prior to the determination of the application, or if such surveys could be conditioned. The surveys confirm the presence of notable habitats on site, which are to be mostly retained, albeit with limited loss for the conveyor. Appropriate compensation should be provided in respect of this. The Council's Senior Ecology and Sustainability Officer advised that it is unlikely that protected species would be unfavourably impacted as a result of the proposed development, subject to the mitigation, compensation and enhancement measures recommended in the surveys being implemented. The environmental statement sets out that the proposal would equate to a net gain in habitat units of 34.81% and a net gain in hedgerow units of 23.86%, meeting the requirements. Conditions and legal agreements are recommended to secure biodiversity net gain. As to land contamination, no specific concerns are raised in respect of land contamination, although a condition to cover the discovery of any unexpected contamination is recommended. Overall, it is considered that the proposal, the principle of the development can be considered as an exception to inappropriate development, in that it is mineral extraction in the Greenbelt. Accordingly, and there would be no unacceptable harm to the character of the area, local amenity or ecology. Accordingly, the application is before you with a recommendation to raise no objection to the principle of development to the County Council. However, the recommendation does make requests for further information to be provided, and conditions are also recommended to be requested of the County Council as set out in pages 36 to 38 of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers on this item. We have Mr. Coles, Julian Coles, who is wishing to object. So you're very welcome to address the committee. And as you've seen, you've got up to 5 minutes, and as soon as you're ready, press the red button and we'll...
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'm Julian Coles. I'm objecting on behalf of all the communities and parish councils impacted, that is Barton, Gotham, Kingston, Rushcliffe, Thrompton, as part of the SAFE campaign. We've been fighting this application site for over 11 years. I used to have hair when it first started. A previous planning application was withdrawn after failing to address deficiencies raised in 3 requests for further information by the County Council. Your officers confirmed this new application is similar, I would say virtually identical, and the County Council have now issued a second request for further information, detailing a raft of further issues. That will be 7 failed attempts to produce a viable scheme, suggesting that that cannot be achieved. Your officer's report makes reference to 185 objections, but that's just for this council. 1,162 objections from your residents appear on the County Council website. We've also produced a whole series of professional responses informed by objective consultants, highlighting the deficiencies in the proposals. In 2021, this planning committee, following the recommendations of officers, and very clearly objected to the previous application on the basis that it would appear unjustified and inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, and it is not considered that there are very special circumstances to clearly outweigh the harm caused. In determining the lack of very special circumstances, the planning committee decision correctly noted that a critical consideration when determining this minerals proposal is the need for additional supplies of sand and gravel, noting that Nottinghamshire had 9.5 years supply of sand and gravel against a 7-year requirement. The current supply is now over 16 years. Sales have declined every year since 2014. So therefore, very special circumstances, do not exist to justify this application. The new NPPF, while stating that mineral extraction can be a permitted exception to inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, also states, paragraph 153, very special circumstances will not exist unless the potential harm to the Greenbelt and any other harm resulting from the proposal is clearly outweighed by other considerations. The Borough Council decision on the previous application stated it has not been demonstrated to the satisfaction of the Council that the proposed development would not have a significant adverse impact in respect of noise, dust, air quality, landscape impact, or the cumulative impact. Whilst thanking officers for their efforts, statements in their current report underestimate the adverse impacts. Noise. The noise assessment has been undertaken for a worst case scenario. Incorrect. The County Council requests now that this to be done in their latest request for information. Dust. The development will result in no significant impacts. Not true. There's been no attempt to model the impact on fare and pastures and the potential primary school. Ecology. The surveys have been carried out according to good practice. Incorrect. The County Council requires new survey work for nesting birds, bats and otter. Cumulative impacts. There's been no assessment in officer reports of the cumulative impact of fare and pastures and another planned quarry for gypsum close by the former power station. Officers have not recommended an objection this time. So what's changed? The proposed mineral extraction and processing activity remains the same for the current application. So there is no reason to suppose that there would not be
30 seconds.
Similar significant adverse impacts for the current application. So in conclusion, we see no justification offered as to why officers have not recommended an objection to the current application, which as demonstrated is fundamentally similar to the previous application. We would respectfully request that the Planning Committee supports our communities and clearly objects to the application, consistent with the borough's previous position and consistent with the objections from our county and borough councillors, MPs,
That's your time, please.
Notts Wildlife Trust, Natural England, RSPB, CPRE and Ramblers. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Coles. Just over
Sorry,
5
slightly
minutes.
over.
No, that's all right. It's not easy to time these things precisely. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Which brings us on to our next speaker, who is a ward member, is a local member, ward member, so Councillor Walker.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you've heard from Mr. Coles, whom I can say, and I think with all due respect, knows more about this application than anyone in this room. I wish to briefly publicly acknowledge him and the campaign team drawn from across the 5 parishes involved for the outstandingly persistent and professional work in scrutinising these proposals in their various guises over many years. The issues are the issues. The decision for you this evening is how the borough should respond to them. The recommendation in the report is for us to pass the buck to the county. It is, of course, for them as the determining authority to satisfy themselves of all the relevant matters. But we are consultees, and it is perfectly open to us to nail our colours to the mast. That is what we did last time, so why not again? What's changed? With respect to our first previous objection, inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, not much. Our planning policy officer's comment on this application is telling. It's quite a long quote. Bear with me. She states, planning policy provided comments on a previous proposal on this site. This stated that despite attempts to reduce the impact on the openness of the Greenbelt, it would not be possible to conceal the quarry's presence and that there would be an inevitable reduction in open views. As such, it was considered the level of harm to the openness of the Greenbelt remained a concern that may, if deemed inappropriate, be weighed against the benefits of the proposal. She continues, the planning statement that accompanies the current application states that changes have been made to exclude previously included land parcels that were identified to be of higher ecologically and archaeological value. It is not clear, she says, in other respects, how the proposal has changed significantly from the previous application. The plant site would include a processing plant of approximately 12 metres in height, albeit set down by 5 metres to its southern boundary, a mineral conveyor of approximately 1.5 metres, offices, wheel wash, weighbridge, car parking, and an access track of 300 metres. In addition, there will be dump trucks, excavators, and a dozer within the extraction area and soil storage landform. There will be 102 HGV movements per day to the plant site. And here's the kicker. She ends by saying, planning policy considers that the previous advice given with regards to Greenbelt openness remains pertinent to the current application. Given that the previous advice remains pertinent, so should our objection. With respect to our second previous objection, failure to be satisfied that the proposed development would not have various significant adverse impacts, not much has changed either. I'm reminded of the old show, Through the Keyhole. Before seeing into the celebrity's house, David Frost would say, watch closely, because remember, the clues are there. And the clues certainly are there. Look at the length of the list of further information this recommendation seeks and the breadth of unresolved issues. Remember that separately, the county have issued yet another Regulation 25 request to the applicant, which in and of itself shows they are not happy. Then ask yourself, can you be satisfied with the impacts on noise, dust, landscape, ecology, and so on, when so many others clearly remain unconvinced? And so to end by paraphrasing Lloyd Grossman, after he'd been through the keyhole, who'd be satisfied with an application like this? Committee, it's over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Well, within 5 minutes as well. So thank you for that. So we've heard from Mr. Cole and Councillor Walker, who are both objecting to the scheme in general and are feeling very strongly that we as an authority, as a consultee, should be objecting as well for the reasons given. Do you want to pick up on any of these points, in particular what's the difference between sort of last application and the current application? The fact this has been pointed out, Mr. Coles, has been going on for over a decade, and the Greenbelt policies in particular. I think those are the main points, but obviously pick up on the others, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. With respect to the previous application, first and foremost, I mean, this is a new application in its own right and requires consideration on its merit at the time, with planning considerations of the time against policies of the time. There have been fundamental changes to the proposed processing area, an overall reduction in size and the footprint of this, with changes to how this will be landscaped, particularly to the northern part of this site. The plant would remain similar, as would the conveyor. There'd be increased permissive routes through the site. There's a parcel of land on the western part of the site, which is set out in the blue line of this application, which has been removed from the application as per the planning statement provided by the applicant, on the grounds that this is a more ecologically and archaeologically sensitive part of the site. So yeah, and I mean, previous objections, as you're aware, and as I'm aware, relate strongly to the plant and equipment of the processing area, as highlighted in my report. And I think if you've looked through the previous report, and the body of the report, is that we acknowledge this. We acknowledge there is some impact of this. It is of a temporary nature, and it is relative to mineral extraction. And mineral extraction is identified within the MPPF as an exception to inappropriate development, subject to it preserving the openness and the reasons for including land within it. Now, it's known that mineral extraction cannot take place without some disturbance to the landscape, without some element of plant and equipment, and that's why we put it to in our recommendation that it is for the county council as the minerals planning authority to consider if this plant and equipment, if the nature of it and the temporary nature of it is proportionate and appropriate for the scheme that they are considering on a whole. And that's why the recommendation is to not raise objection to the principle of the development, noting that mineral extraction can be considered as an exception to inappropriate development in the MPPF, but just highlighting where we stand as Borough Council and the expertise of the County Council as a minerals planning authority to consider if that equipment is proportionate to the works being undertaken. With respect to, so hopefully that's covered off, hopefully the changes to the scheme. With regards to mineral supply, as highlighted by Mr. Coles, again, without wishing to sound like it is passing the buck, but I appreciate that is how it can come across. We are not the experts on mineral provision. That is what the County Council are there for as the minerals planning authority. So when it comes to the mineral supply, we allow for them to determine how this relates to their existing mineral supply, and if therefore sufficient very special circumstances are identified for this. I would just highlight though that the site is allocated within the County Council minerals local plan as an appropriate site for sand and gravel extraction. Yeah, in terms of the timescales that have been going on for this application, I can't provide much more comment on that other than to say that yeah, the original application for this came to us in 2017, long before my time here, and it was heard by the planning committee, I believe, in 2017, and then again brought back in 2021 following Regulation 26 that was provided. And on that note of the Regulation 26, I did address it in my opening remarks. We are aware that further information is being required. What we're looking to do here is provide a response to the County Council now, because we are suggesting further information is obtained. We are recommending conditions, so we would like to get our response to them at this point, so that can be put back to the applicant, hopefully as part of these discussions. We wouldn't want to sort of delay too long before getting our response to them. So we were aware of that before this committee meeting, but it was felt prudent to get our response to the County Council at this moment in time, especially when you consider this application has been in since about March last year. Nothing further at the moment. Thank you, Chair, but I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. So really it's fair to say that the main point that we as a consultee can really make or comment on or make a decision on are the issues of the noise, air, dust, ecology, contamination and landscape. It's fair to say that basically, as far as this authority as a consultee is concerned, those are the points we are in a position to comment on, as opposed to the sort of the need, for want of a better expression, of the application taking place, which is the Minerals Authority, who
Yeah, I
is
think that's
responsible for that. Okay. And also, could I just ask for clarification? We've got the note here about the further request for a further Regulation 25 request, which is fair enough. So to clarify, does that mean that the application would then come back to us again as a consultee after the county council has received that further section 25 request?
Yes, I can confirm that's the case. So the letter was sent out by the county to the applicant on the 16th of April requesting further information. The process is that the applicant then essentially the county have said that they won't continue any further consideration works on the application until further information has been provided by the applicant. When the applicant provides that additional information, that will go back to the county, who will then do a full reconsultation on that to everyone that they've previously consulted, both on their terms and including ourselves. The process, how we deal with that, is we would then consult with our internal consultees. Consultations would not go directly from us to the public. Because it's a county matters application and that is covered by the county. We do, however, consult with our ward members. So we would follow that process and then consider the best route for reply. So we would have further opportunities to respond to that. And it would be a formal consultation period, which would give us the opportunity to do that. Timescales will just dictate the process for getting that response across as to how quickly we need to respond in the committee cycle, I think.
Okay, thank you. So this could go on and on. So we had a couple of hands up. First, I saw Councillor Ellis and then Councillor Mason, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm having a little bit of difficulty speaking because of a throat problem, so I'm not intending to get into a debate. But to me, this is an absolute non-starter, and I think we should recommend rejection. And I would put that forward as a motion.
And I would second that.
Okay, well, that's fine. What I would say to that is obviously that we'll probably need a little bit more debate and discussion, but also if you're making any recommendation that's different to the recommendation here, you need to be clear as to reasons and material planning reasons and so on. So I'm sure you've got those in the back of your mind.
I would not be able to actually list them, Chair, but I think the speakers have encapsulated all the reasons for rejecting this application. And my colleague on the left will speak for me if necessary.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I know Councillor Mason, you had your hand up first, but Councillor Perrick wants to come in. Are you happy if I let Councillor Perrick get on this one, because she's following on from Councillor Ellis, and then I'll come to you. Thank you.
I would second Councillor Ellis's position about rejecting the application. Happy to speak more about in detail when we come back to this motion, but I'll let the debate take place for now.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify, you said you're objecting to the application. We're not discussing the actual final application tonight. What we're discussing is the response from this authority to that application. So you just need to be clear how you word and how you say things.
So in the officer's report, it says Rushcliffe Borough Council does not object. That's what it says in the report. So what I'm saying in response to that is actually we do object.
Yeah, I'm just making it clear that it's just the way you said it, the way it came out about the whole application. But you're in effect saying that the Borough Council objects to the principle of development. When it comes to the final application, it's the County Council as a
Absolutely,
yes. Who makes that. I know you know that, and I know everyone knows that, but we need to just make that clear.
Absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you. Well, it's quite a lot to read through for a start, and I'm sure there's even more out there. I do see the point that when you say you raise no objection to the principle, and we're not being asked actually to object or not object to the plan as a whole, as I understand it. We're being asked just just on that, which I find I probably can't do, because there is quite a bit that I do object to, but if these questions are answered, it might go a long way to changing my mind. I think it is important that, because I look through these and yeah, 23 restoration of site, but there is such a lot really here that we're more or less objecting to if it's not put right. So all those questions there's far more of those than just doing it in principle. So that's why I find it a bit difficult to object to it, because are you saying then that if all these that are underneath are put right, we will look at it again and have another crack at it, if you like, of either supporting it or not? Is that right?
That's a good question, and the point you're making there is where it says it's recommendation that, or it's recommended that further information is obtained in respect to the following, and then the list goes on. So yeah, can we answer that, please?
No, it's absolutely a valid point to raise. This isn't our run-of-the-mill application that we normally sit here and get to either approve or refuse. The wording is such that it's almost looked at in two stages. The overarching development is what we refer to when we talk about the principle of development here. That is the mineral extraction that takes place and the restoration of the site. So the no objection in principle part of that relates to acknowledging that mineral extraction can be considered as an exception to inappropriate development in the MPPF, subject to other matters being considered. So that's where we are at that. And then with regards to the final restoration of the site, considering that getting where we are at that point, we wouldn't raise objections to as per this recommendation. The points, as you say, the large number of points raised in the recommendation. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the first 7 points are matters that we have requested further information on, and that we would like to see further information on prior, or at least see those points addressed prior to the determination of the application. The much larger list, going down to 23 points. Sorry, my Roman numerals works terrible. I don't know why I've done it like that, but there you go. We are where we are. Those are recommended conditions. So that's a point whereby if the county council were to turn around and say, right, we want to approve the development, then we have put on record that it should be subject to conditions. These are not worded verbatim, but it's matters in respect of all these points that we have raised there. Does that help to provide a little bit of clarity?
Yes. So is there anything that we can do to say that we raised no objection initially, or to the principle, but that we can have a look and see if this, you know, if these things go ahead, we will make another decision, you know, there will be another decision to be made. Is there any way of doing that?
So I mean, I would say that is for yourselves as councillors to consider. At the end of the day, we are consultees on this. We don't have to object or not object to the application. We can provide a response, and you know, the recommendation is there, but yourselves as members are at liberty to sort of amend that wording. Like I say, it doesn't have to be a blanket one way or another. This is our response, and this is what is written down is the wording that would go back to the county council.
Well, having said that, the county council are the ones that have to make the decision finally, and they're the experts. I think quite here it looks quite good to me, all the things that you know have been brought up. And if there are further things when we get the answers to these, can you go back and come up with more questions just to make sure? Because I know nobody wants that on their doorstep. And so anybody would say no. And if we don't need what they're digging up now, we might do in 5 or 12 years' time. And then this will have to, if it gets turned down, go again. So, yeah, I'm just going to listen to it if there's a bit more debate. But if it could be done, that it's made clear that we will re-look at this and see if some of these issues, well, all of the issues are addressed, or the vast majority, then I would be a bit more happy. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to discuss and decide. So, now, I know I've got a couple of speakers who are already listed, but Councillor Ellis, you're desperate to come in on this, aren't you?
Yes, what Councillor Mason is asking for we've already been advised that will be possible when the questions that the County Council are now asking are answered, and it will be resubmitted to us. So let's not get hung up on it at this stage. To me, this is a half-baked application which we should be black and white about. It should be rejected.
Okay, thank you. Very clear on that. I have other speakers, so I need to, so Councillor Mallinder was next on the list.
Thank you, Chair. I was part of the planning committee that made the decision in 2017, and I must admit, I don't think there's been any significant changes. Well, there have been significant changes, and the significant changes are that we're in a far worse position globally and locally than we were in 2017, as we can see from the fact that if you look at the records of the Met Office for this area, the last day it rained thoroughly for a full day was the 15th of February. We are in an extreme drought, and it is May. So we need to do something about climate change, and this is not helping. It seems from our objection that Mr. Julian Coles gave very succinctly, that the supply of sand and gravel is now, we have now 16 years to go, and there is thoughts of perhaps we might need some more if we do some more building in the future. But the thing is that taking natural aggregates uses a great deal of creates huge amounts of CO2, not as much as the actual creation of cement, but it does create huge amounts of CO2 in comparison to using recycled aggregates, which are construction debris. Then you'll have a reduction in CO2 and reduce landfill waste and resource consumption. So I think in the future, we will be using that kind of recycled aggregate rather than the sort of having to dig up areas like this to get new. I've been looking at the Notts Wildlife Trust objections, and I must say, I think that, and all the other objections from the RSPB, the local community, CPRE, the Trust for Ornithology, all these people are saying that it will continue to have an effect on other wildlife sites, local wildlife sites, due to loss of wildlife habitat, noise pollution effect affecting the people that live around there, and breeding birds that are sensitive to noise over at Attenborough Nature Reserve, which is a site of special scientific interest, and also Brands Hill Wood. There will also be disturbance of rare birds and sensitive birds, rare in this area anyway. hedgerows will be removed, and they are nesting there. And there's significant evidence that this kind of noise affects bats. There's a loss of feeding habitat for wildfowl and waders in Barton in Fabis side of the river if this were to go ahead, and that is used by birds which visit and breed in Attenborough Nature Reserve. And there's also the loss of home pit, which is well, it's nearby, so it would also be severely affected. So I think that I don't quite see that the fact that these surveys that they're relying on are out of date and that we need further ones. What we really need to see is what effect those surveys give us in the future, and then we might be able to make a decision on this. But we certainly need to object to the application now, and then we'll see how the county council take notice of that. But I do hope that we will be objecting to this, and I think there are many reasons why we should do that. And they've all been very well set out by both the local ward member and Mr. Coles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Malder. Probably no need to come back on this one at that point. That was very clear. Councillor Wells.
Thanks, Chair. Log off. Yeah, okay. I'm surprised with waiting for 7 information, 7 items. We're meeting tonight. I thought we'd have that information and then discuss the whole package. I'm not happy that they're going to work 11 hours today when they're only 150 metres away from the housing. I don't like the wooded taking all the trees out. I can understand why the county council wants it, with the government wanting all these new houses, but I totally agree with Councillor Mallender with all the wildlife, because if you take all the gravel out and the wildlife goes and you put the trees back, who's going to tell the wildlife to come back again? They won't. So I won't be voting for this, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Mason, you want? Yeah. Oh, did I call you to speak?
Oh, yeah.
So you did have your hand. Did you?
I did have my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. So, Councillor Calvert and then Councillor Mason.
Right, thank you. I've got a few points to raise. The first one is related to the nature present representation in these kind of things that were submitted right at the end. I just would like to get clarification on the role of the City Council in this, because as I understand it, the site, there's a little part of the site that's actually in the City Council area. From what I gather, the Minerals Local Plan is specifically for the county and doesn't include the city. But has the city got its own Minerals Local Plan as a query? The representation refers to the City Council being consulted in the way that Rushcliffe Borough Council is being consulted, but if they have their own local plan, they would also have a role that the county has in having a strategic view of all this. So I just would welcome clarification on that. And related to that is the Burrows Farm, because in reading and listening to objections, one of the major objections would seem to be the impact of conveyor belt and operations on that accommodation at Burrows Farm. And when I studied it on my OS map, it looked like that was actually in the city. So again, I'd like to seek clarification on that. So that's one issue. Secondly, it's to do with the temporary nature of the proposal, because the temporary nature of it and the restoration is used as a reason for saying that we can put up with these things because they're only temporary. And I'm wondering what is actually regarded as temporary, because according to the report, this will carry on for at least 12 years, maybe more, and then there's got to be the restoration as well. So when does temporary end? And then finally, if we actually decide to object to the principle of this, I think, and listening to what's been said both by the speakers and by other members, that we would need to seek clarification on the statement that there is no shortage of sand and gravel in Nottinghamshire, because at the moment we're assuming that there is a shortage, and that principle needs to be examined again before this thing goes any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, quite a few questions there, all relevant. So the city does the city have its own minerals plan, or maybe, well, we'll find out in a minute. And Burrows Farm, is it in the city, or on the impact on the or the worry about the impact of the conveyor belt on Burrows Farm amenity? Yeah, sorry, I'm taking words out of your mouth, aren't I? You should be answering this. Sorry.
No,
yeah.
please carry on.
No, it's okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. So the application is cross-border application for both the city and the county council. That means part of the site is within the city. So as a result of that, the whole planning application has to be submitted to the city and to the county council for determination. And the city council do have minerals policies within their local plan. I can't tell you the contents of those policies, I'm afraid, but our response goes to the county council and relates to that. So that's why the county council's policies are listed within the report for this, because that's what's pertinent to our consideration here. The conveyor route does fall outside of the part of the land that's within the city, as does the stocking area. I think on that plan, the label is over the city council part, but it has an arrow back into the actual stocking area itself. So with regards to impact on Burrows Farm is as is set out in the report, that should be given due consideration without a doubt, and is there for the county council. And as you say, the route of the conveyor is in close proximity to that. So in the determination of the application, that will need to be given due consideration. With regards to what is temporary, I mean, we've sat here before you with solar farms, with battery storage sites that have 40-year lifespans, and they're regarded as temporary. Appeal decisions provided by Planning Inspectorate has confirmed that those matters and those works are temporary. Temporary when the temporary works on this site include the plant, the conveyor, those things that will be taken off-site. Obviously, the overall application in respect of the restoration of the site remains permanent, because it will result in a permanent changing of the site. But it's those plant equipment, the weighbridge, the site office, those things that will be taken off-site at the end. Those are the temporary aspects of the site. And I would just note that within the 12.5 years, it is anticipated that the restoration of the site will be within that timescale. So quarrying, preparation, initial works, extraction and restoration within the 12.5 years. That's not a commitment. It is noted within the submission that could vary dependent on sales, but I can't provide any more information on how that would vary beyond that. All I can tell you is what's set out in the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. You want to come back on that, Councillor?
Only that I was mentioning that in terms of if we're objecting to the principle, that there would be an issue around the sand and gravel forecasts and whether there is a shortage or not.
Yeah, and you'd appreciate it's difficult to come out. It would depend on how the objection is worded, which would be for consideration. Could it be worded as that an objection is subject to there being a sufficient supply of sand and gravel in the authority? at the end of the day, we're a consultee. We can provide comments on this. We are not making a determination. But as I did highlight, that is something that we are not a minerals authority. We do not set out what our minerals supply is. That is not information that we're in control of. So it may be best to keep our response to matters that can be genuinely considered by us as a planning authority.
Again, that's it basically, because it's the county who decides whether there is sufficient supply or not. It's not for us to get into that. Yeah. Okay.
Just to say it again, that we would recommend that the county council reviews the current demand for sand and gravel and coming to its own decision in the future.
Yeah, if I could just comment on that. So their local plan process, in the same way that our local plan process reviews housing need and housing targets, they have the same process for their minerals local plan. So that is done on a time basis, subject to when those plans are issued.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mason, you were waiting patiently, so I'll bring you in again, and then I'll go to Councillor Thomas.
It was just that, and it's been partly answered, but the thing that worries me is if we say no completely and to what's before us, it's not our decision. So if the county go ahead and say yes, how can we be assured that all these things are being looked at? Because it's not going to be our decision, and it will make no difference. How can I put it? It won't make much difference whether we support it or not. In the end, the county council have to make the decision. So if we say, right, well, we object, what happens to all the work that has been done and been done by the people here? What happens to all that? If the county council just say, well, we're not taking any notice of that, which they can do,
they could do,
and go ahead and do it.
No, good question.
Yeah, so I think is your concern that we issue a response whereby we say we object and we lose all of these recommendations? So,
because we're turning down the whole of this as far as I understand.
We wouldn't necessarily do that. That we would have the option if the committee was minded to make relatively minor changes to the recommendation, whereby instead of saying we do not object in principle, we could object to the application and still request the further information, and then have the further point that states that should the county council be minded to approve the application, we would request that all of these conditions are included within that. So you know, it's not simply, and again, I think the confusion is because of how we generally deal with our applications is either approved or refused. We have a little bit more flexibility here. So we can object, but we can still maintain all of this information that's in our recommendation, and we can send that across to the county council. To come to your other point, if the county council turns around and determines their application in a different manner, that is the process. The county council will still be able to determine the application as they see fit, subject to material planning considerations.
Does that
So, please, can we do that? And if we do object, still make sure that all these things are added into it, and that we're not. Oh well, they objected, so.
You're basically, I think what you're saying is you're worried that if we said yes, we object to the principle, that the recommendations, observations we made will be completely ignored. That's what you're worried about.
Yes.
But
so I
think
want
we've
it
heard
understood
quite
that we want
clearly that if we did that and we still listed what our observations are, that would still form part of the response to the county council to help it make its own final decision. I think that's the way it puts it, isn't it?
Yeah, so long as whoever makes the recommendation for the response makes that very clear.
Yeah, and that
that's what you've done. So. Oh, yeah.
And that this will still go on. We're not objecting to the whole what they have to do.
No.
You
I know what you said. If the committee was minded to object to the principle of the application, we could still say, however, if the county council ignores that and is still minded, if the county council is minded to grant permission, then we still request or require that these bang are taken into consideration.
Well, I'd like to propose that then, please.
Right. Okay. Well, I suspect.
I don't know whether I've got a second.
Well. Bearing in mind, we've already had an initial proposal and seconding from Councillor Ellis and Councillor Perrick. You might want to sort of have discussions with them. While you're doing that, we've got a couple of other speakers to speak. Who's next? Well, I've got Councillor Wells next. Do you want to come back on something?
I was going to say is.
Can the officers tell me who owns the land? Is it county council? Why I ask, because they mention the farm. Well, if the farmer owns it, well, he knew what he was doing when he sold the land. And also, what happens in the 12 years if the company goes bust? What happens to it then?
I suspect we will be told the ownership of the land is not really of relevance to us, but we'll get confirmation on that. But I do understand completely your question, because I must admit that was a question in the back of my mind. If it gets permission, if it goes ahead, what happens if economics and all the rest of it cause failure? So yes, if we could just have confirmation on that, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. You're absolutely right with regards to land ownership. It's not a material consideration. However, my understanding is that the land is not owned in association with Burrows Farm. It is in private ownership, but that is not a material consideration to this application. With regards to what happens if something was to happen to the company that are carrying out these works, it has been recommended and it is set out within our recommendations that there is a legal agreement to cover the full restoration of the site if excavation works were to end prematurely. Now, obviously, if the company was to cease to exist, that would be difficult. The county council, that would go beyond a material planning matter and would be a legal matter that would be for the county council's legal services to consider a fallback position on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas was next, then Councillor Mallender, and then I'll come back to Councillor Ellis.
Okay, thank you. As I see it, the response that Rushcliffe has put in front of us, really, to take forward to the county council is in two parts. The first part is about the principle of development, and that is that first paragraph where it says it's drafted. Rushcliffe Borough Council raises no objection to the principle of development, and then that paragraph is really about greenbelt policy, as far as I see it, and it's mineral extraction isn't inappropriate development in the green belt, but the issue is the openness of the green belt and the impact of the processing plant on the openness of the green belt. And the last time this was considered, it was considered that the harm to the green belt, the openness of the green belt from the processing plant, was such that it conflicted with greenbelt policy. And here, the decision has changed, or the recommendation has changed the other way, so that it's acceptable. And part of that argument is the temporary nature of the development. We have one of these similar quarries near us in East Leek, and yes, that was temporary, but it's been extended. The area's been extended. The restoration has been delayed, and it's gone on and on and on for years. So I think, and there are no guarantees that it will be 12.5 years, which is what it's saying it is. And it's a long time, and it's a long time, I think, in the context of this particular site, which it's so integral to the amenity value to the site, to the residents, in terms of its use for recreation and the public footpaths through it. It is a very long time for that land to be out of action, really. So I think we should reverse that first paragraph and say that we do raise an objection and go back to what was said in the 2021, so it feels like it, 2021 response. That we do raise an objection to the principal development on the greenbelt issue. So that's the greenbelt part of the thing. The rest of it, there are several issues that I think everybody here has expressed concerns about, and the two speakers have expressed concerns about. And the thread here is there's all this information that hasn't been provided. They've gone back and asked for more information. And the conditions that you're recommending actually ask for more reports and more information. And those would be then signed off by discharge of conditions and would have to be gone through. But the overwhelming feeling is that so much that is causing concern in here, that it's mounting up to an objection on all those other reasons as well, but that Rushcliffe isn't in a position to say that. So, I think that could be reflected in the text for the second part of the response here. My particular concern, really, the biggest one is the ecology for me, I think, in that the landscape, particularly at the bottom of the hill where the bridleway goes along, there's a shallow pools there at the moment, very specialised habitat, very, very dependent on water levels. And there is no chance at all that habitat will be recreated once it's been dug out and resolved. I think the whole issue of managing the water levels and what habitats you create is an issue here. And as has also been said, I think by Councillor Malinder, the birds feeding in the wetlands across the river need meadowland, for their existence. Some of the species do. So it's that whole ecology issue. Really, for me, it is one of them, and that hasn't been satisfied, or at least the ecological assessment is out of date. But there's a lot of issues being raised by various parties on that one. And the exceptional impact that this has on a large population that lives within walking distance of it. The processing plant is being built on top of a hill. This is something that will generate dust, and it's been built on top of a hill overlooking a site where Rushcliffe is building 3,000 new homes, apart from the other homes already in the vicinity in Clifton and so on. It's the impact on that. The Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan puts great store on creating housing next to areas of blue and green infrastructure, in that these two things should be paired. And what we're doing here is building houses. This is an area that's got housing on all sides of this land that's used for recreation. And we're doing the exact opposite. We're putting houses next to an area of blue and green infrastructure, and then proposing to dig it up in a very destructive way. I think that the first part needs to be reworded as an objective in my suggestion, and the second part, I think that all these other things that we're concerned about could be worded a lot stronger, and it could say that Rushcliffe cannot support the application with these issues still in question, and then cite all the things that you are, all the things that you brought out. I think that it's more or less the same response actually, and all the officers' work that's gone into this is still there, but it does flip the emphasis of what Rushcliffe is saying from we'll leave it to you in terms of the principle of development, and we want more information, we want all these things satisfied. It flips it to say on balance we don't think it's the principle of development is established, it flips that. And on the other side, it says, we think there are a lot of grave concerns about it, and these are the issues. So that would be my recommendation. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. Very comprehensive, Councillor Thomas. And notes have been taken, I'm sure, by colleagues. Yeah, Councillor Mallender, did you indicate to speak? You did, didn't you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I couldn't have put it better myself. Absolutely marvellous what you've just said, Councillor Thomas. That is exactly what we should be doing. And all those reasons. I'd just like to come back to a few things that have been said. So I think when we refuse something, that is the decision of Rushcliffe Borough Council, and that means we can't put conditions on it should it go to appeal. And but when we refuse this, we can put the conditions on. It's no different to a parish council sending objections in to the borough council, who are the decision-making people. And well, I don't know whether I should say this really, but sad to say, I don't know whether the current county council will decide to completely ignore us. But I always take note of the Amnesty International way of thinking of things, which is it's better to light a small candle than to curse the darkness. I think it is valid about how much sand and gravel there is, but also what I said is that in the future we will, I hope, be using recycled aggregates, of which there are plenty, from construction debris, and that fulfills so many roles. I suggest, if you want to know about it, you listen to BBC Sounds Radio 4 Rare Earth that was broadcast originally on the 11th of April, but it's still available. It tells you it's all about concrete, and it tells you all about this. I've only just listened to it, so it was very appropriate. I didn't realise what it was about, but when I listened to it, I did think that was a very interesting point to be making at this committee meeting. And to add to what Councillor Thomas has said, my daughter lives in Wilford, and we quite often walk along this area, and we walk all the way along. And when I was mayor, I walked all along the boundary of the borough, and I walked along this area as well. And it is used by so many people as a local amenity. And all that would go if there was nothing but a huge quarry there with, as we say, the dust coming from it and being able to see the processing plant and everything. And since COVID, I think people have really appreciated the effect on people's mental health and indeed physical health of being in nature. And we need to have more wildlife sites. And Nottinghamshire have a very low level of protected habitat. And the Wildlife Trust believe we need to increase that by 30%. We should have 30% of land able to support nature. And that can be in development if it's planned properly. So I fully support the recommendation that has been made, and particularly Councillor Thomas's thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manader. Right, a lot of discussion. I've just seen Councillor Ellis indicating Councillor Perrick to speak. You've moved a recommendation. You've heard a lot. What are you wanting to say now?
Chair, I just wanted wanted clarification on the commercial aspects that we were talking about. It's my understanding, and officers will correct me if I'm wrong, that commercial considerations are not a material planning concern, and financial viability of a company is not a planning concern either. They're out with the planning process. And in the case of worrying about whether if the company goes bust, remedial action can be taken, it would be normal to have a bond taken out to cover that eventuality. But that would be a legal issue for the county council.
We'll get confirmation on that. What's on the commercial side?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, absolutely right. The the financial side of the company and the likelihood of them going bust during the process, if that sounds like the concern that's being raised. Yes, you will note that this has been raised by in representation, sorry, to the application, particularly those from the parishes. But the response is that this does fall outside a material planning consideration. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Perrick, did you want to speak?
No, I'm ready if Councillor Ellis has moved recommendation, ready to speak.
So we're getting to that point now. So I don't think anyone else has indicated to speak. So Councillor Ellis, are you ready now to add to your recommendation as discussed, but also with the reasons? And I'm sure officers will help and guide us if that's needed.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my proposal would be that we object totally, and then the reasons will follow. And if we need to incorporate the conditions that we've covered, unless they actually duplicate the reasons already stated for rejection, then we do add those afterwards. Am I being?
I think that's clear. We are clear on that, aren't we? Sorry, Councillor Perrin.
Yeah, I would like to give some more reasons about why we are objecting to the principle of development. I got that right. Before I go into that, I just want to say a huge thank you to officers, because it was a very long report, and you would have spent a lot of time doing that, and it took me a long time to read and digest it. So thank you for all your work. I would like to thank that a decade of campaigning. That is not easy. And as you've said, you have less hair than what you had before. That is phenomenal. 1,162 objections.
Councillor Perrick, just address the chairman. You're addressing the committee.
Yeah.
And you need to be getting to a point now where I think everyone recognises the amount of work that's been put in, both by officers, the public, no doubt the applicant as well, and no doubt the county council. It's a very, very long process.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll come to the point.
Try and keep
no, that's fine. But I just had to say that's phenomenal campaigning. So for me, this application is motivated purely by greed and profit, without any consideration given to our climate, environment, and the adverse impact. So I'm proposing the recommendation in the report is amended to include 2 points of objection, which are the proposal will represent inappropriate development in the green belt by virtue of ancillary engineering and processing operations, including a processing plant approximately 12 meters in height, mineral conveyor, offices, wheel wash, weighbridge, car park, and access track, which do not maintain the openness of the green belt. Therefore, the proposed development by definition is harmful. It is not considered that there are any other it is not considered that there are any other consideration that clearly outweigh the harm to the green belt, which would amount to the very special circumstances to justify the grant of permission. It is not considered that the land meets the definition of grey belt land. And the second reason would be it has not been demonstrated to the satisfaction of the council, to the satisfaction of this committee, that the proposed development would not have significant adverse impacts in respect of contamination, amenity, landscape, rights of way, noise, dust, air quality, ecology, or the cumulative impact with existing housing applications permissions. So, and these are the 2 main points, and then all the all the further information that is mentioned into the body of the officer's report, that we also need all that information additional, because there were many points where information wasn't enough, and as Councillor Ellis said, it was a half-baked application, so we need more information.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. That's very clear. I would just advise that reference to greed and profit and half-baked are not really things you could put in a formal response. Not really, but I'm sure everyone understands where you're coming from, what you're saying, but it would, I would suggest it wouldn't be appropriate to moderate the language, I think. Are we clear on that? Do you want to come back on it just to advise us and just make sure we're doing things correctly, please?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I've been obviously listening to the whole debate and sort of tried to capture everything and tried to capture as much as I could of that. So if I'm sorry to just read out, but I think it's probably best to make sure everyone's clear as to exactly what.
It's essential. Everyone needs to be clear. Everyone
they're
does.
voting for. So what I've got down here is that Rushcliffe Borough Council raises an objection to the principle of development on the basis that the proposal would represent inappropriate development in the green belt by virtue of the engineering and processing operations. I just wondered if we could just expand on that, just to understand exactly what it is about them. So is it their sort of their, you know, the size of them, the scale of them, or?
Councillor Thomas.
Size and scale and location causing harm to the openness of the green belt. I comment actually that screening things because they're ugly doesn't actually help with protecting the openness, which is what's been proposed.
I think they should say that screening wouldn't help.
Okay. So the proposal would represent inappropriate development in the greenbelt by virtue of the size, scale and location of the engineering and processing operations, including a processing plant, 12 metres in height, mineral conveyor, offices, wheel wash, weighbridge, car park and access track, with limited screening, which would not be considered to preserve the openness of the greenbelt. The proposed development would therefore not fall within an exception to inappropriate development in the greenbelt, and therefore the proposed development by definition is harmful. It is not considered that there are any other considerations that clearly outweigh the harm to the greenbelt, which would amount to very special circumstances to justify the grant of permission. And then I think you mentioned about grey belt as well.
Yeah, it does not meet the definition.
Okay, so it's not considered that the land meets the definition of grey belt. And then the second paragraph would be Rushcliffe Borough Council also consider that it has not been fully demonstrated to the satisfaction of the council that the proposed development would not have significant adverse impacts in respect of contamination, amenity, landscape, rights of way, highways, drainage, rights of way, noise, dust, was it? Yeah. Air quality, ecology. And is there anything else on that?
The cumulative impact with existing housing applications and permissions.
Okay, or the cumulative impact with existing housing applications.
Existing and future housing.
Existing and future housing applications. Okay. Then after all of that, we would put, it is also recommended that Nottinghamshire County Council obtain further information in respect of the following prior to determination of the application, and that's bullet points A to G, but with the updated G as a result of the species, which I've forgotten, but I won't make you say it again.
I was going to ask you if you wanted to say.
And then fourthly, should Nottinghamshire County Council consider the application to be acceptable, then Rushcliffe Borough Council recommends conditions in respect of the following, and that's points 1 to 24, but with the addition of the Badger one in the late item as well. Okay.
Yep. Oh, Councillor Thomas.
So just make one more suggestion to the proposal that we also empower the officers in conjunction with the chair of planning or the portfolio holder to make minor changes to the document that's sent to the county council.
No, oh, you're nodding your head on that.
I don't think that's necessary. I think what has just been read out to us is excellent and incorporates all the points that we have collectively made. Let's not complicate it.
Okay, got that. So we're clear. We've had a very robust and deep discussion on this, and so we are where we are. We've got the recommendation to refuse, which I don't propose to read all out again.
Not refusing.
Sorry, even I'm getting confused now. Yes, we have the recommendation as moved by Councillor Ellis and Councillor Perrick with the reasoning as we've just heard, which I don't think we need to read out again. So if we're clear on what we're voting on, let's have a show of hands, please, to show who is in favour of that revised recommendation. I think that's unanimous, but for the record, is there anyone against? There's no abstention. So that revised recommendation is carried. So Rushcliffe Borough Council does object to the principle, etc. So thank you for that. Which takes us on to the only other item on tonight's agenda. Or just let the vice chairman come back to. So the only other final item for this evening is we have a report of recent appeals. It's in front of us. Does anyone wish to ask any questions or make any comments? No. Officers, do you need to add anything to these?
I don't know if you wanted to mention.
Oh, the West Leak, yeah. The land off West Leak Lane, the West Leak, Rushcliffe on Soar. This was the proposed battery energy storage facility. This was the one going back to last year, I think, wasn't it, where there was a recommendation to committee to grant permission. The committee didn't, objected. The applicant went to appeal. The appeal was allowed. That's how these things happen sometimes. But at least Rushcliffe wasn't awarded. We didn't have to pay costs. Is that the point you all wanted to make? Or?
Yes, it was, but also I think just in terms of that was the one where there was complexities of when the MPPF, the revised MPPF landed as well. And then that's where sort of the council had to sort of withdraw its position as part of that appeal process. But as you say, was able to sort of ensure that the costs were dismissed as part of that.
It's always a worry about it. Councillor Thomas.
Yes, I was just going to say that it was there was a policy change involved in that issue. No.
Oh, okay. So any other questions or comments on that? So no. Righty ho. So that's the final item on the agenda. We'll bring the meeting to
just before you do that,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman. As this is expected to be your last meeting as chair of this committee for a little while at least, I just wanted to say a few brief words of thanks. I know you've served the committee and thus the council as chair of this committee for many years, but it's how you've done the job which has always impressed me. Calm, measured, reasoned, reasonable, always fair but firm when required. The steadiest of hands with a first-rate bedside manner. So I hope I wouldn't expect to speak for my colleagues, but I hope I do. I think we'll all say thank you for a job very well done.
Thank you, Rex. That's really kind of you. Thank you. And I can't remember. I'm not sure how many years I've been doing this. It must be quite a few. I'm sure people are saying, "Oh, he's been doing it too long," but nothing stays the same forever, does it? But chairs are moving, or likely to be moving over the next week or so. But thank you. You never know. No, I might be sitting on the committee at some point because we nearly always get apologies, don't we? And so trying to find someone to sit in on the committee isn't always easy. So I might still be on the planning committee, but maybe not necessarily as chairman. But thank you, that's really kind. Thank you. And also, I have enjoyed it. I love that. I like the way you referred to me as being calm. I might give that impression, but sort of inside the old sort of, and the brain sort of darting to and fro, because you always think you're kind of thinking